Chapter 59 of The Plum and the Golden Lotus, Chongzhen edition of the embroidered portrait. Simon Xingluang is shocked to fall in love with the moon. Li Pinger cries when she sees something. The poem says, "The maple leaves are at the beginning of the year, and the oak leaves are yellow, and the river young is worried about the new frost." The ghost disciples look back at the empty space. Who can say that the spring road is heartbreaking? Lu Yaoyan is confused and indifferent, and the story of the death of pearls and jade is unclear. Only teardrops can turn into rain, pouring all the water into the East China Sea with boundless hatred. By the way, Meng Yilu and Pan Jinlian sent the mirror-grinding old man at the door. Suddenly I saw a man from the east, wearing a big hat and gauze, riding a mule. He walked very quickly and came down from the door. The two women were so panicked that they couldn't walk back, lagging behind. I opened my eyes, but it was the Korean guy who came home. Ping and hurriedly asked, "Has the truck arrived?" Han Daoguo said, "The truck has entered the city. Where can Dad unload it?" Ping and said, "Dad is not at home. He went to have a drink at Master Zhou's house to teach him how to unload. It's upstairs opposite. Please come in." After a while, Chen Jingji came out and accompanied Han Daoguo to meet Yunyang. He came out of the hall, brushed off the dust, and sent Wang Jing home with his luggage. Yunyang sent out some rice and ate it with him. After a while, the truck arrived. Jingji took the key and opened the door upstairs. There were little feet who were unloading the trucks, and the boxes were piled upstairs. The 10 loads of satin goods were unloaded until it was time to turn on the lamp. Chui Ben also came to help. After finishing, check and lock the door, put a seal on it, send the money, go out. Dan had already gone to the garrison mansion to report to Simon King. Simon King heard that goods were being unloaded at home, had a few glasses of wine, and arranged to light the lamp before coming home, waiting to see Mr. Han. Everyone sitting in the hall told the whole story. Simon King asked, "Daddy Kion's letter has been written. Have you seen some points?" Han Daoguo said, "It's all about this letter from Daddy Jin. 10 trucks of goods have saved a lot of tax money." The villain put the box and the box to boxes were combined into one, and only 2 of the 3 stops were reported. They were all used as tea and horse tooth incense cabinets to pay taxes. There were 10 loads in total, and the father only paid 35 taels of silver. He didn't even bother to stop him for inspection, so he drove over. Simon King was filled with joy and said, "Tomorrow, I'll buy him a lot of money as a gift." So he ordered Chen Jingji to accompany Han. The waiter and brother Chui sat down, brought out the dishes in the back, stayed for a while to drink, and then went home. When Wang Liu heard that Han Daoguo was coming, he ordered his mates Cheng Xiang and Jinner to serve him tea and rice. During the night of waiting, Han Daoguo arrived home, paid homage to the family hall, took off his clothes, cleansed his face, and the couple each complained about their separation. Han Daoguoxi told his wife about the success of the business. She saw a lot of silver in the bag, so she asked him and brought another 100 or 200 taels of wine and rice for herself, unloaded it in the shop outside the door, and slowly sold the money. "Come home." The wife was full of joy and said, "I heard Wang Jing said that he has found another man to be a salesman, Brother Chui, and I will share the profit with him. This is good again. We will open the shop in Chuyu." Han Daoguo Dao. There are people working as sellers here. There are still few people in the south to set up shop and buy goods. Dad will definitely send me there. The wife said, "You have to look at the goods. Since ancient times, those who can do more work. You can't. Do you want to do business? As the saying goes, if you don't work hard, you won't be able to make money in this world. If you don't bother to go out for 3 years, wait until I tell my father and teach the man named Gan to fight. You can just sell things at home." Han Daoguo said, "It's fine if you're familiar with it outside." His wife said, "But here you are. Your husband is lost and he has nothing to do at home." After that, he put the wine on the table. "Come." The couple drank a few glasses of farewell wine, packed up and went to bed. It was a night of endless fun. No need to elaborate. The next day was the first day of August. Han Daoguo arrived at the house early and watched with Chui Ben and Gan as they packed up and renovated the earth storehouse. But when Simon King saw that the goods were unloaded and there was nothing going on at home, he suddenly thought of going to Zheng Ayu's house. He secretly sent Daener 3 taels of silver and a set of gauze clothes to him. When the Zheng family's madam heard that Simon's father had come to invite his sister and son, he felt as if something had fallen from the sky. He quickly accepted the gift and said to Diane without hesitation, "If you go up to my father more often, say that both his sister and son are waiting at home. Dad, please come down early." Diane came to the study room at home and replied to Simon King. At about noon, Simon King ordered Diane to pack up the sedan chair. He wore a shawl on his head, a straight-fitting Qingwei dark patch on his body, and foundation and soap boots. He first walked around the house to look at the decoration of the earthen storehouse, and then got up. They got on the sedan chair and lowered the bamboo curtains. Qintong and Diane followed. Wang Jing was left at home, and Chen Hong was asked to carry a straight bag and go straight to Zheng Iur's house in the courtyard. Exactly, Chongzhen arranged the incense sticks on the machine, and started by dragging a nest of snow. "Not only can I go to Taoyuan to cross the river, but I can also come to the moon cave to accompany Chang'e." But Zheng Xianger, dressed in pink and oily hair, saw Simon King arriving and greeted him halfway through the door with a smile. "When I came to my guest seat in the Ming Dynasty, I said one blessing." When Simon King sat down, he told the boy Qintong, "Take the sedan home and pick him up on horseback in the evening." The Qin boy went with the sedan home, leaving Diane and Chen Hong to wait on him. After a while, the madam came out to pay his respects and said, "My sister has been disturbing me a lot in the house. Dad came here to take a break. How can I give you a gift?" "Thank you so much for the clothes, Simon King," he said. "I called him that day. Why didn't he go? He only recognized Wang Wang's family." The madam said, "I still blame Dong Jiar and Li Geier. I don't know if it was my father's birthday call, but they all had the etiquette. But we sisters didn't have it. If I had known better, I would never have agreed to the singing with Wang Wang's family, and went to my father's house first. When I fell behind, my father sent someone again, and I was so worried that I was carrying him." The Wang family quickly encouraged my sister to get into the sedan by the back door. Simon King said, "I made an appointment with him at the banquet at his father Shia's house the other day. Needless to say, I would be upset if he didn't come that day. Why didn't he say anything that day and didn't like it?" The bastard said, "Since the little shopkeeper's house has been groomed, it's so easy to go to my father's house and see you. There are so many people. I don't know how to scare him. He has been mute since he was a child. Look, he didn't get up until now. I should have urged him a few times, saying that Daddy is coming today, so you should get up early and clean up." He refused and stayed up until late. After a while, the maid brought tea, and Zheng Xianger handed it forward and ate it. The bastard said, "Please, Daddy, please come and sit in the back." Zheng Xianger asked Simon King to go into the open room outside Zheng Iur's room and sit down. Simon King saw the 3 characters Ayushwan written in regular script on it. After sitting for a long time, I suddenly heard the sound of the curtains. Zheng Iur came out without wearing a hairpin, with a silk Hangzhou silk comb on her head. The hair was black and glossy, and the clouds were piled with hair. Crows are like light smoke and dense fog. Wearing a pair of white lotus root silk fairy clothes, a purple silk skirt with emerald patterns, and red mandarin duck and phoenix beak shoes at the feet. The exquisite jade is swaying in front of her, and the hibiscus pink face is more and more visible. Exactly. If it weren't for Daozi's Guanyin painting, it would definitely be a painting of a beautiful woman that prolongs life. Ayur walked downstairs, looked at Wu Chuanbu and said hello to Simon King, then sat next to him with her pink face covered with a golden fan. Simon King's eyes stopped and became more regular than when they first met. Unconsciously, his eyes were wandering and he couldn't help it. After a while, the maid brought another dish of tea. This pink-haired woman gently shook her sleeves, slightly revealing her spring figure. She took a bell and handed it to Simon King with both hands. Then she and Xiang each took a bell to accompany them. After eating, "Put away the cup and go away. Please sit in the undressed room." Simon King asked Diane to come up, widened the green gauze cover and placed it on the chair. Entering the Fenta room, you can see the Yao windows, embroidered curtains, brocade mattresses and flower beds, and the strange fragrance. It is extremely elegant. It is truly a so-called fairy cave, inaccessible to human beings. While they were chatting and joking with each other, the maid came in to set up the table and put down many exquisite vegetables. "Please eat the lotus cake first." Zheng Aiyur picked up the shredded meat with his own hands, rolled it up, placed it in a small gold plate, and handed it to Simon King to eat. After a while, after eating the cake and putting away the fire, they spread out the red felt strips, took out 30 dental plaques, and wiped the plaques with Simon King. After wiping it on, he put it away and put the wine on the table. But I saw piles of strange fruits and wine with golden ripples, which was very neat. The two sisters handed over the wine and arranged the wild goose pillars on the zither beside them. The style was strung across the gauze. Aisheng played the zither and Aiyur played the pipa and sang a set of Du Shang Shen Lai. When Wayne's words come out of a good mouth, there is a sound of cracking stones and ringing beams. After singing, he sat down at the banquet and took a dice basin to compete with Simon King to guess the red coins. After drinking enough, Zhang Xianger changed her clothes and went out, leaving Aiyur alone to accompany Simon King to drink. First, Simon King took out a white silk sweat scarf from his sleeve, with a gold heart-piercing box tied on it. Zhang Aiyur just said it was fragrant tea and was about to open it. Simon King said, "It's not fragrant tea, it's the tonic I take every day. My fragrant tea is not placed here, it is only wrapped in paper." Then he took out a cup from his sleeve. A package of fragrant tea and osmanthus cake was handed to him. Aiyur didn't believe it, so she reached into his sleeve and took out a purple crepe sweat towel with a pair of gold pickers tied to it. She held it in her hand and looked at it. It was very cute. Said, "I saw Sister Gui and Sister Wu Yin both holding sweat scarves like this. It turns out they belong to you and him." Simon King said, "I brought it on the Yangzhou ship. If not me and him, who owns it? If you, I'll give it to you. I'll send another one to your sister tomorrow." After saying that, Simon King took a drink of the medicine in the heart-piercing box, held the powder head in his arms, and drinking wine and smacking one's tongue, one by one. "They're all there." Simon King stretched out his hand and touched his fragrant milk again. It was so tight that it felt round and smooth. Pulling off the cardigan and looking at it, the fragrant white color is like jade. After pondering for a long time, lustful thoughts often rise, and the words coming from my waist suddenly come to mind. Unbuckle his trousers and let him hold them in his delicate hands. Seeing how big it was, Vanda stuck out his tongue in fear. He put his arms round Simon King's neck and said, "My dear, you are meeting me for the first time today. Just let me in half. If you put them all in, I will die. How dare you take medicine to grow so big? Otherwise, how could you be born with such a strange color, red, purple, and such a cruel person?" Simon King said with a smile, "My son, go down and taste it for me." Aiyur said, "Why don't you worry? The days ahead are as many as leaves. Today is the first time we meet, so come back and wait for me to taste it for you." After saying this, Simon King wanted to talk to him. When they were having sex, Aiyur said, "You don't want to drink anymore." Simon King said, "I don't want to eat. Let's go to sleep." Aiyur asked the maid to lift the wine table aside, and took off her boots with Simon King. And I went to the back to change clothes and take a shower. When Simon King took off his boots, he rewarded the girl with a piece of silver, sent her to bed first, burned incense, and placed it in the incense cage. After a long time, the woman came into the room and asked Simon King, "Are you going to have tea? Go to bed." The two pillows are mandarin ducks, and they are surrounded by birds. Simon King Jian's pink skin is slender and hairless, just like a steamed white flour cake, soft and cute. He hugged his waist, but it was not enough. Sincerity is the warm fragrance of nephrite, which is hard to buy with a lot of money. So he sandwiched his two tender legs, which were as white as silver bars, between his waist and eyes, then put a support on his head and pushed it into the heart of the flower. The glans was tall and big, and it was wet for a long time before it lost its edge. Aiyur whereupon her brows together, put her hands on the pillow, and couldn't bear it. With starry eyes dimmed, he whispered, "Please spare Zhang Yuer today." After hearing this, Simon King became more and more ecstasy, pumping her wildly, and was extremely happy. Exactly how much you get in spring. Peach blossoms bloom red, and the wind blows the willows into green. The next day, Simon King came into the room and told her what he had dreamed. Simon King said, "I know where he died. This is the old place you dreamed of. Just put your heart right, and don't pay attention to it. Now I will ask the servant to take the sedan chair to pick up Wu Yin'er to accompany you, and call Lao Feng to serve for 2 days. Dian went to the courtyard to pick up Wu Yin'er. When the sun went down, Guanjir was just twitching in the wet nurse's arms. The panicked wet nurse called Li Ping'er. Mother, come and see your brother. His black eyeballs are just rolling up, and the air in his mouth is only coming out, not going in. Li Ping'er came and hugged him in her arms, crying and calling the maid. Quickly ask your father to go. You said the child is about to die. But Chang Jiji came again to talk and told her that the house had been found. There were 2 rooms in front of the door, 2 floors, 4 rooms of different sizes, and only 35 taels of silver. When Simon King heard that Guanjir was getting worse, he sent Chang Jiji away and said, I won't send you off. I'll send someone to bring you some money some other day. He hurried to Li Ping'er's room. Yu Niang and the others were all watching in the room. The child was twitching in his mother's arms. Simon King couldn't bear to look at him, so he went to the main room and sat on a chair, sighing. After half a cup of tea, Guanjir died. It was the afternoon of August 23rd, and he only lived for 1 year and 2 months. The whole family burst into tears. Li Ping'er scratched her ears and cheeks, banged her head on the ground, and fainted from crying. Half a day later, she woke up and hugged him and cried loudly, My hopeless child, I am so heartbroken. I would rather die with you. I won't live long in this world. My heart of abandoning and killing people has left me so miserable. The wet nurses Ryer and Yingchun were beside them, crying and unable to speak or move. Simon King ordered the servants to clean up the west wing of the front hall, put down 2 wide stools, and carry the child out with the pillow, mat and bedding and put him there. But Li Ping'er was lying on the child, hugging her with both hands, and she would never let go. She kept shouting, My helpless enemy, my darling child, you have betrayed my sweetheart. I have worked so hard in vain, and I will never see you again, my sweetheart. Yu Niang and the others cried for a while, and they could not stop trying to persuade him. Simon King came and saw that he had scratched his face, with his bun messy and his black hair in disarray. So he said, Look how barbaric. Since he is not your or my child, we raised him, and now he died young. Just cry a little and forget about it. Why do you just keep crying? Crying won't save him. And your health is more important. Carry him out now, so that the servants can ask the fortune teller to take a look. What time is this? Yu Niang said, This is round the Shen time. Yu Lu said, What did I say before? He should have waited until this time to die. He was born at the Shen time, and he died at the Shen time. The day is the same, both the 23rd, but the months are different. It's a full year and 2 months. Li Ping'er saw that the servants were waiting on both sides to carry him, and she cried again, saying, Why are you rushing to carry him out? Auntie, reach out and touch him. His body is still warm. She cried, My child, how can I let you go? You're making me suffer so much. She fell to the ground again and cried for a while. The servants then carried Guaner out and stopped him in the west wing. Yu Niang complained to Simon King, You should also tell your in-laws and his master's temple. Simon King said, Go to his master's temple tomorrow morning. On the one hand, he asked Diane to tell the Master Kiao's family, and on the other hand, he asked someone to invite Su Yin to review the book. He also took out 10 taels of silver and gave it to Ben Si, asking him to quickly carry a pair of flat-top fir boards, and asked the craftsmen to immediately build a small coffin and bury the body. When the Kiao family heard the news, the wife of the Master Kiao came in a sedan chair and cried as soon as she entered the door. Yu Niang and the others cried with her again and told her the previous story. After a while, Su Yin came and looked at it and said, The boy died forever at the Hour of Shen. Yu Niang asked him to come out and show him the black book. Mr. Zhu looked at the Yin-Yang secret book and said, My brother was born on the 23rd day of the 6th month of the Bingshan year of the Zheng reign, at the time of Shen. He died on the 23rd day of the 8th month of the Dingyu year of the Zheng reign. The month is Dingyu, and the day is Renzi. This is a serious loss to heaven and earth. The family should avoid crying. Relatives are not afraid. When burying the body, people born in the 4 zodiac signs of snake, dragon, rat and rabbit should avoid it. It is auspicious. It is also written in the black book. Those who die on the Renzi day will correspond to the Aquarius palace above and the Qi land below. In his previous life, he was a man in the Kai family of Yanzhou. He used to rely on his strength to seize people's property, drank alcohol and became destitute, disrespected heaven and earth and relatives, was involved in unexpected events, suffered from a cold disease, and lay in bed for a long time, which was filthy. The death was a child, and he was also suffering from the epilepsy. After 3 days, after reading the scriptures, I went out for 5 days and buried it on the grave. After a long life, the family cried again, and the yin and yang went. The next day, Simon King was chaotic and did not go to the gate. He also sent someone to inform the temple of Wu Daoguan that on the 3rd day, 8 monks from Baoan Temple would be invited to chant sutras at home. The temple of Wu Daoguan and the family of the wealthy Qiao all prepared 3 animals for sacrifice. Uncle Wu, Uncle Shen, Uncle Han and Uncle Hua all offered 3 animals for sacrifice and burned paper. Ying Bochu, Si Zaida, Wen Xiu Kai, Chang Zhiji, Han Daoguo, Gan Chuansheng, Ben Dechuan, Li Zi and Huang Si all contributed their money and came to stay with Simon King in the evening. He sent the monks away and called the people who were involved in the funeral to offer sacrifices in front of the coffin of the brother first. Then, Simon King set up a table in the hall to entertain everyone. That day, Li Guiji, Wu Yaner and Zheng Yuer, 3 families in the courtyard, all came to offer paper. Li Pinger thought of Guangir and was listless every day. She was too lazy to even eat tea and food. When she mentioned him, she just cried and her voice became hoarse. Simon King was afraid that he would miss his child, so he found Shuozi and ordered the wet nurse, maid and Wu Yin'er to accompany him during the day and never leave his side. At night, Simon King stayed in his room for 3 consecutive nights and gave him all kinds of advice on the pillow. At night, Sugu recited the Lingyan Sutra and Ji Yuan mantra for him and advised him, "Don't cry. They are not your children. They are all your enemies and creditors in the past life." It is not good to say in the Dara Sutra, in the past, there was a woman who gave birth to 3 children, but all of them died before the age of 2. The woman cried in grief. She took the child to the riverside and could not bear to abandon it. The Bodhisattva Avalokitesvara was moved to transform into a monk, who said to the woman, "Don't cry. This is not your child, but your enemy in your previous life. He wanted to kill you 3 times in his reincarnation. If you don't believe it, I'll show you." He pointed his finger, and the child turned into a yaka and stood in the water, and said, "You have killed me before, so I have come to avenge you. Now, because you always hold the heart sutra of the Buddha's crown, the good spirits protect you day and night, so I can kill you. I have been saved by Avalokitesvara Bodhisattva, and from now on I will never be your enemy." After saying this, he sank into the water and disappeared. I shouldn't say that your son must be your enemy in the past life, who came to your shelter, turned into eyes and money, and wanted to harm you. I gave up 1,500 volumes of the Heart Sutra of the Buddha's crown for you. With this merit, he can't harm you, so I left my body. When I am reborn tomorrow, I will be your child. After hearing this, Li Pinger finally fell in love, but when she mentioned it, she couldn't stop crying. 5 days passed in a moment, and on the morning of the 27th, 8 children in blue clothes and white hats were hired, and a red gilded coffin was surrounded by banners, snow covers, jade plums, and snow willows. In front of it was a red memorial banner with the inscription "The Hup of Ximen Tomb Man." Wu Daoguan Temple sent 12 young Taoist boys in green clothes to chant the Jade chapter of the living God around the coffin and play music to escort the funeral. All the relatives and friends accompanied Simon King in plain clothes to the east entrance of the street. When they were about to reach the door, they went to the front door. Simon King was afraid that Li Pinger would be sad at the grave, so he didn't let him go. Only Wu Yunyang, Li Zhaoer, Meng Yulu, Pan Junlian, and the eldest sister, 5 sedan chairs from the family, accompanied Qiao's mother-in-law, the eldest aunt, Li Gaier, Zheng Yuer, and Wu Shenzhen's wife Zheng Sanji to the grave, leaving Sun Zui, Wu Yin'er and 2 maids at home to accompany Li Pinger. Li Pinger saw that she was not allowed to go, so she stood up when she saw the coffin, sent it out to the front door, and drove the coffin loudly, shouting one after another, "You guilty son who didn't come home." She shouted until she was angry. Unexpectedly, he bumped his head against the door, scratching his forehead and causing his golden hairpin to fall to the ground. Panicked, Wu Yin'er and Sun Sui stepped forward to help him up and persuade him to go back to the back. When he got to the room, he saw that the king was empty, with only the birthday drum he played hanging on the head of the bed. He wanted to get up, but he slammed the table and cried uncontrollably. Wu Yin'er was beside him, holding his hand and persuading him. "Mom, stop crying. Your brother has already left you. There is no point in crying anymore. You should comfort yourself and sigh and stop worrying," Sui said. "You are young and energetic. What if you worry so much that you can't have a child tomorrow? There are cracks in the wall and holes in the wall. I can't say anything. He is using his heart and mind, but it only hurts me. He has harmed your child. Let him pay you back and ask for his life. I don't know how many times he has buried you and me alive. As long as the man stays with him, he will be angry to death if he sleeps in someone else's house for a night. It's the former. You all know that the man doesn't come after me often. As soon as he comes, you see him gossiping behind my back and talking about my good and bad things to his sister. I don't say anything. I just wash my eyes and look at him every day. This whore, tomorrow I will come back. I don't know how he died." Li Ping'er said, "Forget it. I've also gotten sick here. I don't know if I'll die today or tomorrow. There's no point in arguing with him. Just let him be." As she was talking, she saw the wet nurse Ryer kneeling forward and crying. "I have something to say, but I dare not tell my mother. My brother died today. It's my bad luck. I'm afraid that my father and aunt will send me away in the future, and I'll lose my manhood again. Where will I go?" Li Ping'er felt sad again when she heard him say this, and said, "It's my fault. My wife. The child is gone, but I'm not dead yet. Anyway, if I die tomorrow, you'll be in my hands, and I won't let you go out. When your aunt gives birth to a boy or a girl in the future, you'll be the one to take over the milk. What are you panicking about?" Ryer just stopped talking. Li Ping'er cried again after a long time. Sui and Wu Yin'er tried to persuade her, saying, "What did you eat? You just cry." She asked Shu Chun to bring some food and put it on the table for her to eat with her. But how could Li Ping'er swallow it? She only ate half a bowl and then threw it away. Simon King asked Mr. Zhu to draw a grave on the grave and buried Guanjir in the arms of Chen's mother, and buried him with his grandson. That day, all the relatives of Mr. Kiao offered sacrifices and drank for a day in the newly built pavilion. When they got home, Li Ping'er, Yu Niang, Mr. Kiao's wife, and Da Jinzi kowtowed and cried again. He said to Mrs. Kiao, "My dear, who is like a child raised by a slave. He died young. Now that he is dead, your sister has become a widow. It's all in vain. Please don't laugh at me." Mrs. Kiao said, "Why are you talking like that? Every child has a certain lifespan. Who can guarantee what will happen in the future? As the saying goes, the first love is the last love. My dear, you are not old. Will you worry about not having children in the future? You need to take your time. Don't worry too much." After saying that, he said goodbye and went home. Simon King taught Mr. Zhu to sweep the front hall and put yellow talismans on each door. The dead person's evil spirit is 3 feet high and goes to the northeast. If the wandering spirit rushes back and cannot come out, it will be auspicious if it is killed. Relatives don't mind. Simon King took out a large piece of cloth and 2 taels of silver to thank Mr. Zhu and took him out. In the evening, he went to Li Ping'er's room to sleep with him. At night, he said all kinds of warm words, seeing that Guanjir's toys were still in front of him. He was afraid that the bottle would see Sixiang's troubles and let Yingxin take them to the back. It is just like this. Sixiang's lovely child cries day and night, and my heart feels like it is hanging by a thread. There are many sorrows in the world except for death and separation.
Alright, this part of the story ends here.
Want to know what happened next? Let's listen to the breakdown next time.